wires are gone, so you can celebrate in whatever country you're in and make it like a Chinese New Year.
It's morning wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this. I think this is a
Bobby.
Yeah, this is a center piece of that.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you're talking about 234 million Americans doing this.
Welcome to the Dr. Frankensteve podcast with your hosts, Dr. Frank Williams and Dr. Steve Snodgrass, MD, FACS, where we discuss a broad range of topics without limitations. Let's get to it. Here's Dr. Frank and Dr. Steve.
Hello, welcome back. This is the Dr. Frankensteve podcast. As you can tell off the suggestions of some of our subscribers and followers, we have upgraded the studio a little bit, and we'll probably upgrade it again as we go along. But for now, the wires are gone, so you can celebrate in whatever country you're in and make it like a Chinese New Year.
It's morning wood.
Yes. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing a topic that's pretty prevalent out there, as we do with most of the things we discuss. This one is about dietary supplements and the supplement industry, and Steve's going to cover most of it. As always, I'm Frank Williams. This is Dr. Steve Snodgrass, MD, former chief of surgery. So his wife's an accomplished senior apothecarist or pharmacist. So we had a lot of resources to pull from for the research today. And I found it fascinating, as I'm sure Steve has, when you get into the industry. It's just something that, while somewhat regulated, it's not always regulated to the point it needs to be. So without further ado, I'm going to let Steve go ahead and take over, then I'll jump in as always.
Yeah, thank you. And this one is obviously for people who are not in the healthcare profession, but it's also for people in the healthcare profession, because what's being put out in regards to physician responsibility and that sort of thing. So this is a huge topic, and it's like it is becoming more and more of an issue, and it's something that absolutely, positively has to be addressed in this whole Make America Healthy Again situation. And I looked at some of these numbers, and reportedly in 1994, there were 4,000 products. And now there's over 90,000 products generating $40 billion a year. So it has become this juggernaut of an industry.
40 billion here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
it's just unbelievable. And along those lines, this is that 80% of United States adults take more than one supplement. So you're looking at 208 million people if you look at what the population is reported to be. And then 90%, or roughly 234 million people, take at least one. So it's really pretty remarkable. And other than vitamins, products, the most popular are bodybuilding, sexual enhancement, weight loss, arthritis, pain, and insomnia. So those are the main basic target markets for these supplements.
Such as like the melatonin we talked about before.
Yes.
And I know that one of the most popular ones, I think, is vitamin D. Is one of the top supplements that people take.
Yes, and I do as well, because I had my levels drawn and they were a little low. And so I'm taking that. That's one of the supplements I take a lot, but it's all screened by my wife. In addition to the arsenic and estrogen she gives me, I get the other stuff too.
So that means one day your paintings, me and your brother may be coordinating the painting cells. your painting estate.
Posthumously. So, but I wanted to relay an experience, well, actually 3 experiences I've had, because Bowling Green is not New York City, so a lot of people know who I am and what I did and all that sort of thing. So a lot of people approach me with health care related issues, to say the least, and it's okay, it's what I do. But I've had 3 experiences where these are younger men. And I'll give you an example of one of them in particular because it kind of goes along with all three. But one person comes up to me and he says, "Hey doc, can I talk to you a minute?" And I'm like, "Sure. What's going on?" He said, "I'm not feeling very well, and I feel like my breath is not right. I got a metallic taste in my mouth, and I just don't feel well. My energy's gone." And he said, "My urine," he goes, "there's something wrong with me." He just said it's dark, and he said it's just not right, and I don't know what is going on, but I've got a general overall just sickness about me. And and he was a big guy. I mean, this guy's like, he is big. I said, "Well, are you taking steroids? Are you taking anabolic steroids?" He said, No, I'm not." He said, "But I do take a ton of supplements." And I said, "Well, what I would recommend to you is you go to your family doctor and you get blood tests drawn because there's something, so you're a young guy, and I'm really suspicious that you have basically poisoned yourself. That's my concern." So he goes in, and I see him a couple of weeks later, and he is so appreciative of the fact. He said, "You have no idea what they found." He said, "But I was in the beginning stages of kidney failure, as well as all my liver function tests were through the roof." Now I looked in his sclera, or the whites of his eyes. He was not jaundiced, but I was just really concerned of liver and kidney toxicity, where a lot of these things are metabolized. And he was on the road to dialysis.
Oh, wow.
And so, and a lot of people think, I want to address this. The two of us are not alarmists. We're not saying "Oh, Frank, let's say this because it's going to be so controversial. It's going to get more."
Yeah, we're not looking for that quick click or that viral moment.
Or ear bait.
Or ear bait.
Yeah, we're not like that.
Right.
What we like to do, and all we do is we see what we see, and we base it on our experiences, our research, and basically our life as the way we've lived it, and try to just get that out there. And I think this is so important because there were three people on the road to liver failure, kidney failure, and there's a lot of that going on, and people don't know it.
Yeah. And do you remember when ephedrine came out?
Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was working out, excuse me, was still doing some private contracts, government contracts, and was in law enforcement, and was about to take a contract to go overseas as a private contractor, and turned it down because my wife said, "Don't come back. That happened because you may not come back."
Yeah.
So there was a guy at the gym. I met with a group of guys. We met about 4:30 every morning before we went on to work, because we worked 6 to 2. And the guy was, he was he was athletic, young guy, probably 22, in decent shape, but had a belly on him and stuff. And so over the course of about 6 weeks, we hadn't paid attention. We come in and he's in the locker room, and this guy's ripped like a bodybuilder. And so a friend of mine who was on steroids and got him off of because his doctor, similar situation like you're talking about, I said, "Man, you're a personal trainer, but," I said, "you are ripped. How are you so ripped so quick in a 6-week period?" He's taking this new, supplement, completely healthy, been tested, all this, that ephedrine. Well, he was quadrupling the dosages. And so I said, "Oh, well, good luck." He said, "Oh, you get a little stomach upset. That's about it."
Did you think?
So the next day we come in and didn't see him. Came in the next day, which was a Friday, and I was off on weekends at the time. And I said, "Hey, is such and such okay? We haven't seen him." And my partner said, "Yeah." I said, "He's complaining a little bit about his stomach." He said, "Well, weird. That afternoon that you guys left," he said, "he started complaining he had to go by ambulance to the hospital." And I said, what happened? He said, well, when he got to the hospital, yes, he was ripped, but literally that ephedrine had ripped a hole in the lining of his stomach. And so they had to do emergency surgery on him, tried to do the repairs, pulled him off of that stuff, obviously, and were concerned. They said, that stuff could have killed him. And because it did a few people. And he didn't get back to work for probably 6 weeks. We seen him and he came back in. He had lost most of that muscle tone and stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And was trying to set his workout out, and he worked out with us a few times, even though he worked for the place, because he was just like one of the gym rats and full-time employee. And I'll never forget that. He said, man, I was taking creatine under the tongue, the liquid creatine.
Yeah.
I was taking this supplement, and he said, but that ephedrine, he said, it really just almost killed me. He said, I look good. I said, well, yeah, you would look real good in that casket if they'd had you shirtless. But otherwise, you got to be careful. He said, well, and at that point, he even said, I don't know that I might not take it again, but I don't think I would quadruple the dosage.
He needs some
Mental health.
psychiatric
Yes.
help.
And I just thought I'd throw that because you made me remind me of that when you're talking about the guy that was so young and did that. That was.
And if you look at it,
Lord's not listening to you.
we're not talking. We understand that a human being is involved and a patient's involved and that sort of thing. So obviously, our concern is for the health and well-being of the person.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just look at how much that hospital bill was for that guy.
Oh.
Just so what it does to healthcare. I mean, like these guys, if they would have progressed. I mean, they would have been like candidates for liver transplant or kidney transplant.
Yes.
And that's not an exaggeration, because you're doing something that's basically, and you're taking it over time. And so it's got a continuous effect. So you're just adding on to it every day. And, you're overloading your kidneys and your liver, the capacity for that to metabolize. So it's quite a problem. And in the United States, the dietary supplements, they have to include at least one dietary ingredient. These includes like vitamins, minerals, herbs, or other botanicals, amino acids, and other substances to put into the diet. And this gets a little bit esoteric, but it's important to what's going on in today and how this can evolve. But in the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, it's called DSHEA, of 1994, it set forth the primary framework for how supplements are regulated as a category of food, not drug. So under that arrangement, there are requirements for manufacturers to ensure the quality and the safety of the supplement products. And that includes pre-market notification for certain new dietary ingredients, but the FDA review of those notifications is not comparable to drugs. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're throwing something out there that acts like a drug, if you will, mm-hmm. but it's not regulated at all.
Which is crazy.
When you get right down to it.
If you're listening, Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah, and well, this is a lot of that. What we're talking about is for the whole movement of that. Mm-hmm. So unlike prescription drugs, the public quality standard, this is what I found to be amazing. It's voluntary for all dietary supplements. So under US law, the supplement only would be deemed in violation if it didn't do what it said it did, but it's already out on the market. Mm-hmm. So the cat is out of the bag, if you will. And so under DSHEA, the dietary supplement manufacturers have to follow current good manufacturing practice, or CGMP, but it's intended to ensure the quality of the dietary supplements. And these include the finished product ingredients and applications are for, they identify what it is, the purity, the strength, the composition, and the limits on contamination to ensure quality. And the regulations that the manufacturers set limits for these, it's all voluntary. So they can do anything they want.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, so they can do anything they want. And so, and this includes microbes, microbial toxins, environmental toxins such as lead, mercury, cadmium,
Metals.
yes, and residual solvents, which have been linked to all kinds of disease processes, including cancer. So, that's an issue. And so these regulations only require appropriate tests to be conducted to ensure that they're met, but the manufacturers control the whole process. They can tell anybody anything they want and then put it out on the market, and then it's out there. And so I guess you have to ask yourself the question, would a manufacturer who is in an industry that is generating $40 billion a year.
And globally, you know how much it is globally?
No.
$180 billion.
Oh.
The market is globally.
Man, that's incredible.
That was in 2023.
The question is this, it's like given that kind of money and seeing what we have seen in this world, do you think that there's a manufacturer out there that might not tell the truth?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So that the FDA can only make a determination after the products are on the market, and these products are routinely are not tested by FDA to determine whether the product specifications are even met. So the current regulatory framework is just clearly it's not working. So I found it interesting about the impurities that can be found in these supplements, because they're finding like all kinds of different bacteria and different bacterial toxins.
Again, it reminds me of the ink for tattoos.
Yeah.
Not regulated, just put out, and all you got is a manufacturer's word about how good and how safe the product is.
Yeah, and they found antibiotic resistant bacteria in some of these samples. So you just think about that.
So if you would put that in your body and keep taking it, you would get sick and need antibiotics. Would that mean that would hinder the effectiveness of the antibiotics?
Well, a lot of it kind of depends on what kind of basic toxicity you're exposed to. But when they start talking about all these different toxins that are released by the bacteria, I mean, those kinds of things can be obviously life-threatening. Right. And they would have to just take samples of your blood, grow the blood cultures, and then treat you appropriately. But the thing of it is, there's so many different avenues of misidentification and substitution. So they can take a drug, they can take a supplement, and it's got an ingredient in it, and the ingredient is too expensive. It's going to affect the bottom line. So they will just say, well, instead of that ingredient, we're going to use another ingredient, but we're going to put the more expensive ingredient on the label. So there's that. And also on these sexual enhancement products, they're actually finding that some of these products actually have sildenafil in them, which is generic Viagra, but it's not on the ingredient list. So, but they have found products that have generic Viagra in them, but they're not listed. And where that comes into play is like, somebody's taking, the drug and can have side effects from that. Maybe good side effects, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make any jokes. So,
well,
we were asked, and we've been asked to do podcasts on, which is prevalent mostly here in America, I would assume. All these, I don't like all the drug commercials we have anyway. I don't even watch hardly any TV, but when you do, every commercial back to back is drug commercials. Or it's a commercial for, go ahead and get on this app. We will do your mental health counseling, we'll prescribe your mental health meds, your weight loss meds, your ED meds, your whatever it might be. They're going to prescribe it for you. And that's the newest one that's out there. And people said, are those things legit? Who's behind them? Who's running them? Who's doing the prescriptions? and where the prescriptions come from, because sometimes they, to my understanding, they will ship you, like you said, the medicines themselves or the correct supplements that you need to be taking to enhance those prescriptions. So while this is, I'm sure, is becoming a multi-billion dollar industry, it's something I think, maybe you and I consider at some point looking into, just that telehealth. But I'm not saying telehealth's bad, so don't misquote us on that. I'm saying all these prescription services for all these different issues, that it's becoming like, hey, I'll just go on my app. I don't actually need to see a real practitioner. I can just go on my app and it'll tell me and they can prescribe it for me right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's problems with all that.
Yes.
There absolutely. And the thing about it is, a lot of times when these supplements are taken and people have trouble with them, the symptoms are serious. I mean, they're cardiac symptoms. So we know that people have been treated for cardiac symptoms, heart palpitations, chest pain, tachycardia.
Which is why I brought that up, because now not only are they having those commercials for you to get prescribed something, now the same commercials running into the supplements that go along with what they're prescribing you. So they're kind of hitting the person or the patient, if you will, on both ends. They're telling you, hey, we can prescribe your hair loss treatment, but if you take this super supplement, then it's going to really help with the medication that we're sending you. Yeah. So it goes along with that. And who knows what's in that stuff?
Oh yeah, and I've said this before in a podcast, but I want to reiterate it because I think it kind of just shows what the problem is. But again, I was contacted by the United States Olympic Committee to go through all of their one of their concerns was because all of the athletes were taking creatine, and so they just said, what are your thoughts and opinions on that? And I said, well, it's not regulated by FDA. And I just said, especially when you're looking at basically world-class athletes who have just dedicated their lives to training for this one Olympic. And so I said, buy the creatine at different points along the United States, East Coast, West Coast, the Central America, Chicago, Miami. I told them, I said, just choose Houston, Chicago, Miami, New York, and LA, and then get the creatine and take them into your labs. And they found 16 banned substances. 16 banned substances that were not in the ingredients list, not even a mention of that. And so they obviously had their athletes stop taking that, and then they started testing all of these things before they would give them to their athletes. But that just shows you the serious nature of that. And this is along the lines of being for doctors. The part that I want to talk about now is because there's some people in the healthcare industry, including physician organizations, stating that doctors need to familiarize themselves with dietary supplements and assume the responsibility of the effects and interactions that they can cause. So you're looking at, okay, let's talk about that for just a second. It's important for physicians to know that their patients are taking supplements. I think that's an important thing. But I had a total hip surgery in December, and they said, list all your medications, including your supplements. And so I take a lot of supplements, and the way they dealt with it, they just said, stop taking all your supplements a week before surgery. So we don't want anything
out of your system.
Yeah, we don't want anything to do with that. We're not going to sit there and dissect each and everything you're taking and say oh, it's okay to take that supplement but not that one, because you are our responsibility when we have you asleep on that operating table and everything. And we don't want a problem that's due to one of these supplements potentially. And so we're going to wash our hands of that. And but just think about it. We have a mutual friend, and he had a practice here, And think about all the patients he saw every day. And you're looking at what some of these family practice doctors are seeing, like how many patients a day?
Well, he got up to the point to where he was at 36 to 40 patients a day. That's a lot of patients.
Oh,
because of the systems are overloaded.
so if you look at let's just say that you're on average, you got 40 patients. You got a full day.
Yes.
And you got patients in the waiting room and that sort of thing. So I'm going to say, given obesity, diabetes, kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, you look at how many, we are definitely a nation of polypharmacy. So many people are on so many different medications. It's kind of ridiculous. My wife did a great talk on it, because used to, people would go pick up their prescriptions and they would be like in a little bag. That was their prescription. And then it got to the point where it got to be kind of a big bag.
Grocery bag.
Yeah, and then it got to the point where a lot of patients had their medications in a box. So you think that many drugs, think about that many drugs, and now you're going to take supplements that you have no idea, you have no idea what is in there. And those supplements are going to, they're going to interact with drugs. They're going to interact with the person's own metabolism. They're going to interact with the person's disease state. So all of these factors are part of the healthcare of that certain patient. But my argument is this, is don't put that on each individual physician. We as physicians, we should contact Mr. Kennedy and the Make America Healthy about this, just saying this is not the individual physician's responsibility. This is the responsibility of the U.S. government. Because could you imagine the doctor we're talking about, let's say he's got 40 patients and he's got a patient who's on 14 prescriptions and 10 supplements. And so he's going to go through there and say well, you're taking all of this in addition to your drugs, but I don't know what company you're getting that from.
Right.
And I don't know what they do, and I don't know what's in it. And you may have 20 different patients on the same kind of supplement made by different companies. You have no idea what's in it. So you cannot say with certainty what that is. And so it's just absolutely ridiculous. And
I don't know if you pulled up the amount of ER visits a year contributed to supplements.
No, I haven't seen it.
But it's over 23,000. The CDC and NIH both quoted studies, and the CDC actually did a study, Centers for Disease Control, and they did one on caffeine, they did one on supplements, and said that ER visits are growing exponentially every year. So the estimated annual is just over 23,000, with over 2,000 of those resulting in hospitalization, and then so many of those resulting in death or permanent damage. So while that doesn't seem like a lot, when we're 330 million people here in the US or whatever we're at, you don't want to be one of those 2,000 people that go in there and find out, like the guy at the Nautilus gym that I went to, find out that now you got a big gaping hole in your stomach, or you're taking something that instead of working with your cardiovascular medicine or your type 2 diabetes, whatever it might be, it's actually counterproductive and is hindering it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of people. And again, the healthcare dollars on that.
Well, yeah, because the military alone and law enforcement, it says close to 80% of all military and first responder personnel take supplements, and the average they spend is about anywhere from $76 a month to $250 a month per person. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Which leads into those 180 billion globally for everybody.
Yes, and now there's a new bill out, that was put out in 2022 to tighten this up a little bit as far as the regulation goes and everything, but it's still
sitting in committee somewhere.
Yeah, it's still not. you know, it still does not.
That's what the lobbyists do. They can get them hung up in committees for years.
Yeah. And what I think is interesting is that the FDA, let's see, I want to look at this a little bit more closely, but they put on there basically, hey, this product has not been reviewed by, you know, FDA, so.
Which is a vast majority.
Which basically is just saying, hey, take it, but take it at your own risk, because we're not responsible. And then there's people saying that individual physicians should be responsible. So I'm going to say to my physician colleagues, I believe that you should put in your chart, just say, we understand, we've documented what the patient is taking in regards to the drugs as well as their supplementation. That being said, in no way do we take responsibility for any kind of problem that the supplements may cause or may not cause, that sort of thing. We are not responsible. And I would tell that to the patient, like, I don't have any idea where you're getting that. I have no idea how it's being manufactured. I don't know if the manufacturer's telling the truth or not. So how am I supposed to do that for 40 patients? You mean to sit in there and go through the list and make phone calls to each manufacturer and all that? I mean, this is a job way too big for individuals.
This is where government can be effective.
Yes.
And can help.
Yes, absolutely, and should. And I would put it on my chart, just saying, in no way, and I have discussed this with the patient, am I responsible for their health in regards to the possibility of supplement damage. And I would tell the patient that, and I would have the patient sign it, and I would sign it in front of somebody in my office, because if I'm a malpractice lawyer, I'm gonna look at it and just say, like, easy pickings. That's easy pickings.
Which is why I'm really big on children not taking supplements.
Yeah.
Unless the doctor's done all the testing and everything, because annually, you know, there's about 2,200 kids that are hospitalized because of adverse effects from dietary supplements their parents gave them or were suggested for them. You know, that's based on about, they're just over, now this is separate from adults, what I was quoting earlier. There are about 23,005 emergency department visits each year. And the study was based off of about 4,000 cases. And what they find is, you know, it's 20-some% of children are affected negatively by taking supplements because they're just too young, you know, and over half of them were female patients, young females. I don't know, they're trying to straighten their hormones or whatever out. And most of the visits were related, so it's not like they're taking a bunch of supplements. The majority of the visits for them to go to the hospital of dietary supplements or herbal supplements or sports drinks, weight loss, whatever it might be, was one supplement they were taking. So it tells you that if you're going to do something, you have to make sure that, like Steve, you have to make sure that you see, you know, your pediatric, because the American Academy of Pediatrics is their stance is that no children should be on any dietary supplements, period. Unless the doctor, they go see and they run tests and they see if, like, you know, like they're not hitting the growth charts, they have issues, other health problems, but that has to be a whole body plan, not just, hey, I think they'd probably be all right, give them a little extra D3 and maybe some melatonin to help them sleep, or, you know, this and that.
And it's, you know, the thing for me is that I have an advantage in regards to healthcare because I'm a physician and my wife is a pharmacist. Right. And, you know, she's figured out, like, what supplements that I need for my issues. And she's gone through and has looked at each and individual supplement, where it's manufactured, and she knows the people who manufacture. So she's got a direct contact with them. And then the other thing that I do is that I check blood work, get blood work checked in regards to kidney numbers, liver function tests, and all that sort of thing. So I've got a baseline or a foundation of my lab results. And then after I've been on a supplement for a certain period of time, I get my labs redrawn to see if there's any kind of changes or trends that I should be aware of. But that's like the guy that told me, he said, like, I've got this terrible metal taste in my mouth. My urine's dark. He said, I'm just sick. I'm just sick, and I'm doing everything I can to make my body healthy, but I just feel unhealthy. And then when he got those labs drawn, he had the fear of God in him. I'm telling you, he was scared to death, because he said, like, I had no idea what I was doing to myself. And how many people are like that?
Oh, many. And how many people are going to take the time to, you and I are pretty health conscious. Like I said, we get our eye exams, our dental exams every 6 months, eye exams once a year, our physicals every year, and anything that's going on, like I'm just getting over the flu, which didn't last too long. So excuse me, that's why you hear me cough every so often. But, it's different if you take a whole body approach and actually are proactive about it. Most people, if they get on supplements, they're just going to keep buying them. Or the unfortunate part, you're going to go to your local Walmart, Kroger's, and I'm not knocking them. I'm not trying to. If you want to support us, contact the Dr. Frankensteve podcast, where we happy to have you as one of our sponsors. Any large chain or small chain, we'll take anything. So, but when you go in there, most people are looking at price. So maybe you get DEAH. Well, my wife, because my family, disclaimer, actually utilizes his wife, as she has thousands of patients that she actually advises on what are the best brands to get stuff from, because you could go in there and see a supplement and be $3.45. Well, you go to another one, it's $4. The other one's $14, and one might be $28. It's all the same supplement, and you're like, what is setting the difference in this one? I asked a pharmacist last week because of a supplement my daughters take, recommended from your wife, and she said, oh, I use this one. It's twice the cost. I said, but the other one's organic, and it's the one they've been using. Well, this one's not necessarily organic, but I think it's a lot better. So I said, do you have any lab tests I can look at the differences on both? No. I said, then how do you know that? Well, generally, if it's more expensive, it's a better product.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. But, to your point and to my point, is like, this is such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, government is supposed to help keep us safe.
Right.
So this falls right in line.
Absolutely.
And especially the new MAHA movement.
Yep. Make America healthy again.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is
Bobby.
Yeah, this is a center piece of that.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, you're talking about 234 million Americans doing this. And while I'm all for things that help you, I'm all against things that hurt you. And, I can even see, like, okay, a protein bar or, something like that. I get that. But realistically, if it's like a powder form,
even these energy drinks,
capsular form, these things need to be looked at, and there's going to be a lot of. It's just like anything else. How many times have we seen now fraud, waste, and abuse?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the supplement industry. It's unregulated, realistically, and so these people are making a fortune.
Oh, yeah.
They're making a
fortune. $180 billion a year globally.
And so do you think that in any way, shape, or form that some of these people are going to misrepresent themselves?
Yeah, and cut corners.
Yeah, and so, like, the ones that are guilty and, that sort of thing, they're going to fear something like this. I can guarantee you, if Mr. Kennedy says, what we're going to do is we're going to now take on the supplement industry, and we're going to police that, and we're going to clean that up, because it is a major healthcare issue.
Well, when you combine kids and adults, just here in America, it's close to 50,000. So when you're talking tens of thousands of people, that may not sound like much to somebody when you say, well, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Like you said, what is that doing to the healthcare cost in the U.S. alone, when you've got 40,000 plus, just under 50,000 people going to the ER? It's clogging up the ERs. They're in there, and that cost is passed on to somebody, whether they have insurance or not, somebody. So that's, the ramifications are ridiculous. You have to take time off work. especially if it's a kid, you have to be there with a pediatrician. Then you got to, go through that as a pediatrician, know if it's the supplements or know if it's, what as your regular doctors, they know the effects, like you were saying. You can say, because when I go, that's the first thing I always ask. You have any updates to your medication or supplements list? So you put any of that down on there, and if your doctor has time to even read that before they see you, especially if you're in with a flu or a cold or something.
Yeah, and to the other thing too is that I think we got a little commentary about, like when I said we're not in a constitutional crisis, we're in a healthcare crisis, and a lot of people don't believe that. But you think about overloading the system. When you overload the healthcare, when you overload any system, anything, and like it's like if you're on a sports team and you are playing from behind, you're pressed. And if you look at physician burnout at an all-time high, physician suicide is significantly higher than the general population. And a lot of that is just the overwhelming burden of really caring about your patients, but you've got so many and you're just overloaded. And it gets into the whole thing of physician pay and the hours that you work and that sort of thing. And anytime that you overload a system, which ours is,
it's definitely overloaded.
Anytime you do that, what you're going to do, what's going to suffer in both the short term and especially the long term, what's going to suffer is quality. The quality of the people giving you health care. Because we're already starting to see like these people who just are arguing whether they should be able to call themselves doctors or not. We've already gone over that, and I won't be repetitive, but I'm just saying that you're looking at something that overloads the system. And so it's just part of it, and it needs to be under government control because it's so vast.
Right.
It's so vast.
And I've fought my whole life in both military and paramilitary, served for freedom. But there are things that I believe that the government is responsible for and should be responsible for a healthy nation and for even for a free nation. Just because we're free doesn't mean, that's your choice obviously, but doesn't mean it's free for all these manufacturers and all these people to be putting out these products. Like you said, there was a local food chain that was putting out products that they found that their brand of supplements, now they've since changed and went with another manufacturer, their brand of supplements had the highest content of metals in those supplements, from omega-3 pills to all this. And and that's been probably 15 years ago, there was a lot of stink made up, but it was very short-lived. It was like a story for like a day or so, and then nothing.
Well, I think for me, the bottom line on this is that people need to know that all of these products, they're not regulated like drugs, but they have effects on the body.
But they should be.
Yeah, and so I think that people should contact their local politicians and the MAHA movement saying this needs to be addressed. And physicians should say, especially physicians say, we are not responsible for this. And it's some of the big medical organizations are saying, hey, physicians should be familiar with this and address this, but you can't because you don't even know what's in the container. You don't know.
And so new supplements come out all the time.
Yeah. And so if you're saying like, okay, you're taking creatine, well, overall, I don't have a problem with that because I take it. But which one are you taking? And you look at that all over the country and it's different. I mean, I know that I'm getting what the manufacturer says I'm getting because, I'm following it with my own blood work and that sort of thing. But so I'm very cognizant of this. But I think a lot of people just go to their local health food store, buy a lot of things, and they don't think about contamination and the different interactions that these supplements have with everything going on in their bodies.
Yeah, and even once I say they are lab tested, you need to check the lab out. It's just like when the CBD oils came out, I contacted a couple people and said, hey, my father-in-law and my wife asked me about it for arthritis, and I said, well, let me find out. So I'm not going to say who, but it was some local professionals that called themselves doctors. They're really not, because you're popping backs. But what happened was, it said, oh, we've got this line we use because this is one of the best labs, in the South. And I said, oh, what's the lab's credentials? Well, why would you ask that? I said, because I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted the lab, and the guy hung up the phone on me. I said, listen, I'm just asking you, if you could send me any of your credentials and the background of the lab, you make these products. He says, we're a private lab, we don't give that. Click.
Yeah.
So I called right back, you know me.
Yeah.
And did it again, hung up on me again. And so I emailed them, and they emailed me back. I said, stop contacting us, period. So I went back to him and I said, this is what I got, and here's the email. I said, if you can't provide, because I knew a lot of his patients, I referred a lot of them there. I said, if you can't provide the actual results that I'm looking for, I'm going to tell you, as not only a friend and a close friend, you need to stop selling this crap, because it's illegitimate. And he got mad at me for a couple of weeks, and then he said, we met for lunch, and he said, I'm the actual doctor who called and tried to find his stuff out. They gave him a hard time, and he said, so we pulled everything, shipped it back to him, and made him refund. He said, we won't distribute that anymore. And he said, even though I have a physician's office, I always thought, as long as we follow what they're telling us is correct and it's lab tested, we should be fine with our patients. And I'm not saying that wasn't an MD, it was a different type of doctor. But as I said, I don't claim to be a know-it-all. I do know that when I'm doing something, me, just like we like to research. I want to make sure that person's doing it, that they know what they're doing, Yeah,
and the thing of it is, it's like the FDA says to the manufacturer, the manufacturer decides the method of testing and decides on their own whether it's scientifically valid or not. And so if you've got all of those it's basically you're looking at the fox's guarding the hen house kind of thing.
Exactly.
And so it's a dangerous.
Well, it's a simple
entity.
fix.
Yeah.
You do the same like you do with, again, I don't have tattoos, I know I bring that up a lot, but it's like the inks for tattoo. You regulate them under the Food and Drug Administration. You take the supplements, you regulate them and put guidelines and make sure they're followed. That takes care of that.
Yeah. And you know who's going to squawk the most? It's the ones who are breaking the law.
Yes.
They're the ones that are going to be squawking the most. All you have to do is just watch and see what happens.
It's like the guy from that company that was making millions on bottled water, saying it was pure spring water. Well, all they were doing is they had the water coming in from the city, and they were filling it in their factory. That's been like 10, 15 years. Well, it's probably 20 years ago, actually. But they got stone cold busted and had to revamp. Now, they stayed in business till they sold out, but they lost like 80% of their business at one time because they did an investigation and found it was just regular tap water they were selling people.
Yeah, I mean, and when you start throwing out that kind of money, you're going to get, there's a lot.
Well, the lobbyists alone are going to fight against it.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're going to fight this too.
That's why you got to have somebody who's willing to take the hit and who's willing to stand up on their principles, Bobby.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kennedy, we want you to follow through.
Yeah. And I just want doctors to put this on the charts and just say, hey, we are not responsible.
Never thought about that. That is a good, if I was an insurance company, I'd say, I want that. Here's the line you must put in everybody's chart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that physicians need to lobby for this. And I think, I personally, I'm going to contact the AMA about it because I think it's that important.
American Medical Association.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, it's one of those things where it's way too big and it has to be regulated and corralled. And with that, I can say thank you and enjoy.
Yes. That's all we have for this one. Again, we look forward to seeing you guys next week, and also we're going to start putting some video shorts for healthy habits. You'll be able to see those. Majority, they won't have Steve and I in them, but they're just little explainer videos to kind of help you in case you have questions, because some people said, what about gut health? What about, I get migraines? What about this? So these little explainer videos, they're animated. They'll kind of give you a little guideline of what that actually is, where it came from. So we look forward to hearing your reviews. And as always, stay healthy and stay safe. Until next time, see ya.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Frankensteve podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit follow or subscribe on the link provided so you can stay up to date on new episodes. Until next time, stay healthy and stay safe.